What's up, everybody? It's your boy DJ Harrison Ford, Grumpy Face, yo, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Joel and I will take a look at the world of movie news and movie trailers that have dropped throughout the week and commentate on them for you guys. And then we will have our joint review of Blade Runner 2049, the sequel to the 1982 failure at the box office, but became a cult hit afterwards. And then Joel will have some mini reviews for you guys, and of course the box office results for the weekend. What will we think about Blade Runner 2049? What will Joel think about his mini reviews? Well, you're going to have to sit down, relax, and find out. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you were searching on the internet for something really random, you wanted some football stats, and you accidentally stumbled across a podcast website for whatever reason, and you're not a movie fan, and you want to stick around through this entire thing, well, hopefully we can convince you to be one, because this is a podcast for movie lovers and just passionate people that just love that 24 frames a second art form, whatever that thing is called. So anyways, welcome if you're a returning listener. What we usually do is we go over some movie news and some trailers, and we will commentate on them for you guys, that all the stuff that have dropped throughout the week, and then we'll have our main reviews of movies that have dropped on the weekend, and then box office results as well. If you were a returning listener or a new listener, welcome back, and welcome. We love you all, so please stick around. And before we begin on episode 202, please spread this around, guys, and let people know this is a decent podcast to listen to while you're working out, driving, or boning your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or whatever. Just we Joel and I like to think that we're very sensual people, and if this is what you like to play in the background during your lovemaking, we understand. So, episode 202, guys, we are about to start this. So, the main review that we will be doing is Blade Runner 2049, and Joel's got a couple mini reviews, and of course, you know I'm not going to reveal them. Like, Joel's going to spring them on you guys and, scare the shit out of you with them. So, that is the main topic of today's show. And speaking of Joel, Joseph, my boy, how are we doing this week?
It's been a good week, actually. Just very, very enjoyable, laid back. My parents had been gone, so I had the house to myself. And then they came back, and it's just kind of been your typical week. Nothing really huge happened. So
did you hear that? Did you hear that in your voice, Joel? Did you hear the disparity in your voice? You're like, my parents were gone for a week, and I partied. I partied like Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street. I snorted some coke off of hookers' asses, and you're like, oh, and then my parents came home. Like it sounded like you were in a defeat stage. Is this correct?
I'm always in that. No, I will say though that of course our thoughts are with Las Vegas right now, because the deadliest shooting occurred in U.S. history, at least since the days of wars and stuff in the past, and it's awful. So that was the big thing that happened within the past week. But with me personally, other than sitting in disbelief about that, it's been kind of an uneventful week. So
Wow, thank you for your insight, Joel. Just like what Joel said, our thoughts are out to everyone in Las Vegas and that terrible shooting. It just evil stuff, man. I will never understand it. I never will. It's just one of those mysterious things in life. But yeah, I hope everyone can recover, from this. And please, can we stop this shit? I know we're in America and this is like a war zone now, but oh, please, just for the love of God, stop it. Other than that, my week was pretty boring as well. As you can tell, Joel and I are just the most popular people in Dallas. I didn't really do much. I hit up that Boy Meets World marathon on Hulu. So, if you were a 90s kid like myself and like Joel, and we grew up during that prosperous time in our lives, and Boy Meets World was your shindig, you know what I'm saying? So that's on Hulu. Check it out. I haven't really done much. I caught up on Blade Runner for the first time ever. We'll get to that before we review 2049, so you'll know my thoughts on that going into it. But yeah, pretty boring week. But that's okay. That's okay, Joel, because we like doing this for you guys. This is our highlight of the week. And speaking of this show, let's get this going, because there's a lot of interesting pieces of news that I would like to discuss and tear people a new one, to put it lightly. Let's start with the movie news, guys. There was a lot of stuff that dropped this week. Universal has got their head coming out of their asses and finally realizing that what they did was a humongous nightmare and they should never approach it again. So the news is that Universal has halted production on The Bride of Frankenstein. This is going to be the kind of follow-up after The Mummy. It's going to be directed by Bill Condon and written by David Koepp. And it had a nice, just group of people working on this movie. It looked like a lot of people were passionate about it. They were going to expand this dark universe, and they've halted production. It's because The Mummy, starring Thomas Cruise Willis, that came out in June, was horrendous. And so, it doesn't surprise me that they are halting production. Hell, they were, after The Mummy comes out and these numbers are as abysmal as they were domestically, I wouldn't be surprised if they shut down the company. I couldn't believe when I was watching the movie that they tried so hard to set up this universe. It was like watching a desperate frat dude try to hit on a woman at a bar. It was terrible. Every single scene that was trying to set up this dark universe in that film was so forced. I felt like Universal was massaging my shoulders and going, "Don't worry, the dark universe is coming." It's like, no, I don't want that. Get your fucking hands off me. And so, The Mummy did not do well at all domestically, got terrible reviews, and they were setting up this dark universe. I still remember sitting in that fucking theater and having the Dark Universe logo come up before, and I almost hurled in my seat, and it would have been just absolutely wonderful because I was wearing a white shirt. But this doesn't surprise me at all, Joel. They need to not treat this like a shared superhero universe. I know that's what the CEO said at Universal. She was like, they're going to be our superheroes. We're not going to make it more of a horror franchise or whatever. We're going to make it more action-packed, and that's not the way to go, especially with Bride of Frankenstein. Bride of Frankenstein goes toe-in-toe with, Frankenstein and whatnot, and it's a very tragic story. It is a horrific story. Why are we making this into an action-packed franchise? So, them halting production on Bride of Frankenstein, it makes me angry because they were so adamant about starting this dark universe. They hired all these A-list actors and whatnot. They're like, we're gonna go all in. We're gonna do this. And then The Mummy fails, and well, we're not gonna really do it. It's like fucking Warner Brothers all over again. We're gonna have movies out until 2025. Oh, these movies aren't doing so well. We're gonna have to rethink that. It's like, I don't understand, Joel. I don't understand. Can you help me out here?
I cannot, because I think that they should just stop, honestly.
Yes.
They tried it. It was an awful, awful movie. Every day that movie spins further away, the worse I think it is. And I think that actually, I just get these feelings about what Roger Ebert would have given movies whenever I see them. Some more solidly than others. And I think that this would have been one that he would have given 1 star. And it's just indicative of the fact that people just didn't like it. It was so bland visually. It was dumb. It was loud. It was annoying, and people saw that and they didn't go to it. And now Universal's trying to save face, and they're just halting production on this next one, which they should have made just Frankenstein next, not The Bride of Frankenstein, but whatever, and also call it Frankenstein's monster, not But it's they just need to stop. They just need to take a step back. Maybe I guess rethink mode is nice, but I think they tried already, and somebody's gonna give them the point that, well, we already did this, so let's maybe do this, but a slight variation on it, which is action adventure instead of horror, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. They need to stop. I'm glad that they're in rethink mode, honestly. I think that they need to start from scratch. Put The Mummy behind them. Take a completely different approach to it, and just redo everything. That's my thought. Or they just need to give it up.
Yeah, it's really weird because I am very angry that they're doing this, but at the same time, they have put a lot of money into this, and they were already in production. So it's like they might as well just completed it and just then kind of redid everything. But I mean, you're right though. I mean, they got to stop it while it's bleeding still, and not continue to go forward with it. So I mean, I want them to go back to more of a horror kind of route, more horror drama, if you will. And I wouldn't mind if they did like an action horror thing. I mean, the Mummy with Brendan Fraser, as much as they are corny, like they have all the elements you need in that type of film, where it does have the action, it has cheesy romance, it has kind of horror sprinkled throughout. It was a decent little blend that was entertaining to get through, but yeah, they need to rethink this shit. And speaking of rethinking shit, Joel, why is this like a trend? Because Warner Brothers and DC, they have no idea what they're doing. They never have, and they always just react to the most recent thing, and they're just reactionary, and it's just terrible. So they are going to step away from kind of calling this DCU an extended universe and have it kind of like all tie in with one another after Justice League, and they're all going to kind of do their own thing. Wonder Woman was such a success that they want to kind of follow that format, where it's like an Elseworld story, a story from the past, and they want to kind of continue that tradition. Of course, Matt Reeves, doing the Batman film, has said that as well. He's like, listen, it's going to be separate. It's going to be more darker, more neo-noir. So that's fine. Like, I don't care if they do the extended universe or not. I just want them to stick with a fucking plan. I'm so sick and tired of them jumping back and forth. And it's almost like watching a cry for help, because all the Justice League promos and the trailer that just dropped like an hour ago, which we will talk about next week, at the very end of all the promos and the trailers, it says, all in November 2017. All in basically tells us that Warner Brothers is putting all their eggs in this one basket, hoping it works, and then they'll probably be reactionary again and go back to their original statements and make it an extended universe. When they have that phrase, all in, you're probably thinking, oh, it's cute, it's talking about the superheroes. No. They're talking about themselves, that this is their kind of like all-in project, and if it doesn't work out, then it's just, oh man, they just need to stick on one track. It's just, it's quite annoying. But, I mean, if they want to do like this thing where it's not, in the universe, and they're more like kind of separate stories, like I said, they take place in Elseworlds or, in the past or whatnot, that's fine. I just want good movies. I could give a shit if it's in the same universe. The MCU, that's cool that it's in the same universe, but a lot of them stand on their own. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, that came out a month before Wonder Woman. If you would have never told me that is a part of a cinematic universe, that could stand on its own 2 feet. So I don't understand the obsession, and this ties in with the Universal thing, the obsession with cinematic universes. Just because Marvel did it doesn't mean you have to do it. Just make good movies. That's not how comics work. Comics have, yes, there might be a few issues that have a story arc or a storyline that goes throughout, but for the most part, they are standalone, separate things for each issue. So, Warner Brothers, how you doing? My name is Chase, and that's Stroll over there. We're telling you this as friends. Just stop it. Like, just do your Justice League, do Batman, Wonder Woman 2, whatever you're gonna do. Just don't try so hard to make it a cinematic universe. That's all. That's all I have. So, Joel, does this baffle you that they're flip-flopping once again and kind of retracting everything that they've tried to set up over the past 4 years?
It's insane. I'm just going to reflect everything you said, and I'm going to add a point, and that's, trying to repeat what Marvel did. It's essentially that all of these companies are trying to do it too quickly.
Yeah.
You see that, the Dark Universe, we were just talking about how, that's already a mess and it's only one movie in. And I think that the problem is, and now, we got this where Justice League is the fifth movie in the franchise, and it's already the Justice League. And, of course, I think Avengers was what? Also fifth. So I guess, or sixth. It was sixth. So here's the thing, though. Here's the problem. I think that they're trying to move too quickly. They have such a sense of forward motion in their planning that they're trying to do it too quickly. Where with the Avengers, that whole plan had been bubbling up, for about 5 years before Iron Man came out. So they had some time. It was in the planning stages since 2004 or whatever. And then they went, it was not, until 2 years later until they went to Robert Downey Jr. and things started coming together and Iron Man, took off. And then it was 2 years after that they finally did another movie, after that year at least, that they finally did another movie in the universe because they took their time with it. Here and with the Dark Universe, they were just planning it out. It's like, when I was about maybe 7 or 8, I had this weird pipe dream that I was going to make all of the Harry Potter movies right then. I was going to direct them at the age of 8 because I was young and I was dumb. And Shaquille O'Neal was going to be Hagrid and Anthony Hopkins was going to be Dumbledore and all this stuff. Basically, Warner Brothers and Universal are me at the age of 8. They're just trying to, bring all of this up right now. They want the success right now of the MCU, and it's just not going to work. They're trying too hard with too little right now, and they need to enter their own rethink mode. I think I feel like they're about to do that. We've been hearing rumors about how they're shifting gears after Justice League, and maybe that'll help them, but dropping the continuity just tells me that they're basically just directionless right now. And it just, I don't know. It's a weird thing for sure.
Well, Joel, I don't know what the trend is this week, but you're handing me all sorts of fucking weird news because here we go. Once again, Universal is in the news. Tyrese Gibson. Good old Tyrese from the Fast and Furious franchise, Joel's favorite franchise. He has come out on Instagram. Yeah, I know Instagram. And basically bitched about The Rock getting his own spinoff with his Hobbs character with Jason Statham, which we kind of knew was happening. They announced that. It's not a big deal. But he, was saying that The Rock is causing delays and Fast and Furious 9 will be pushed, and he's got beef with them. Vin Diesel had beef with them. It's just what in the fuck is happening? All right, can we just take a chill pill, folks? Can we step back for a second and acknowledge the first thing? Hey, Tyrese. Hey, how you doing? I must say the same thing to you as I said to Michelle Rodriguez back when Joel and I did a story where she was demanding more money, which that's fine. I mean, you're 8 movies deep in a franchise. I think you should get pay bumps. That's not the issue. It's just that you're demanding a lot for a franchise that is keeping you alive. If you did not have this franchise, you would not be anywhere, Tyrese Gibson. You just simply would not. You would die into obscurity, and people would be like, oh yeah, that was the guy from Too Fast, Too Furious.
Or he would just go back to rapping.
Yeah, I mean, at least he's got that. Michelle Rodriguez doesn't really have anything. But who fucking cares? I don't understand. Okay, there's a spin-off movie happening. The Rock is hot right now. Of course they're going to do that. That's fine. If it delays Fast 9, who gives a shit? It's going to come out anyways. Why are we starting this random beef? It's the same thing I was talking about when Vin Diesel and him were arguing. And then, that was right before Baywatch came out, and, his ego was huge back in the day, and then once Baywatch flopped on its dick, ironically, there was a scene of someone flopping on their dick in that movie, but, no, and then when that came out, his ego was kind of deflated and whatnot, and so, it makes The Rock look like, he was pretty dumb for arguing and whatnot. It's just, I don't understand. It's like you're multimillionaires arguing on Instagram. What are you, 16-year-old girls? I don't get it, Joel. Like I said, Tyrese, if you didn't have the Fast and Furious franchise, you wouldn't be anywhere. So stop your bitching, just make your movies and fund your little side projects or hobbies. So, Joel, does this even faze you? Because I know you told me in secret. Now I know that you don't like to let us air dirty laundry on air, but Joel recorded that Fate of the Furious episode. He didn't like it, and so when we got done recording, he started like coming to me like as like a sad little puppy, and he's like Chase, I actually really love it, and I hope it wins Best Picture at the Oscars. Like he was like really sorry that he had to bash it, and like he thought it would be just good entertainment and whatnot. And Joel actually really loves the franchise, and he loves it more than life itself. And Joel's been very invested into this story ever since it happened. He's been following it. So Joel, does this sadden your soul a little bit that the cast of your favorite franchise is arguing?
No. You're a dirty liar. No, I really couldn't care less. Like I don't want a ninth Fast and the Furious movie. I don't see the point of a spinoff that half involves the character who killed a really beloved character and suddenly
the enthusiasm in Joel's voice is palpable.
Yeah, I'm just so excited. So yeah, I don't care. It is kind of childish for them to do that over Instagram or whatever. But they might as well be doing it over MySpace, and
they're going to bring back MySpace for arguments.
MySpace, Friendster, I don't know. Yeah, I just have no feelings toward this. It's just kind of whatever, you know?
All right, well, Joel, I understand. So let's resuscitate your dead soul for a little bit. We got some casting news. Did you know that there was like a bunch of fucking casting news that have happened throughout the week? Like when Joel sent me the notes, I was like, oh yeah, that happened. I was like, man, this is like casting bonanza this week. So
yeah, I was actually creating the notes, and this is weird insider information for everybody. But when I prepare the notes, I like to keep it to 5 pieces of news that we can discuss. And then I was seeing all this casting, I was like, dadgummit, how am I supposed to do this? But then I realized, oh yeah, we can just put it all in one place.
That's right. We're gonna rapid fire for you guys. I think that's the best way to do it. And of course, we can just lightly talk about them because like some of these are just like, okay, I'm cool with that. Okay, I'm cool with that. Whatever, and then moving on. So, all right. So casting news, guys. There was a lot of stuff that happened this week. So let's get on getting on. Venom, starring Thomas Hardius. Also known as Tom Hardy. He will be playing the title character, and so a lot of people have been added to this cast. We have Michelle Williams, who I absolutely adore, from Blue Valentine and also Take This Waltz, and then of course Jenny Slate. That's weird. She played a voice on the Chipmunks movie, so that's also cool. No, she's really good at voice acting. Actually, I joke about it, but she's used to be on SNL. She was infamous for dropping the F-bomb on her second episode. But Jenny Slate's actually a really good actress. So she's done a lot of smaller indie films, and she's really good with voice work. She's in a lot of animated movies. Look at her IMDb. So that's the first bit of casting. Judy Greer going to be playing the Jamie Lee Curtis' daughter in Halloween. That's actually really great casting. I'm okay with that. Kate Winslet in Avatar 2. Listen, Kate Winslet could wipe her ass in a porta potty advertising in Lowe's or Home Depot, and I will watch it. Okay, she's worked with James Cameron before. Cool. And then Jared Leto playing Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner was actually lost just this week, and so of course they're going to move with a biopic because this is Hollywood, baby. So Jared Leto is going to be playing Hugh Hefner, and it's actually going to be directed by Brett Ratner. So expect Animal House Part 2. It's just going to be a frat party bonanza, fantastic. And I'm going to throw it over to Joel because whenever a piece of Harry Potter news or Fantastic Beasts news or Star Wars news drops, I always give it to Joel because this is what Joel lives for. If he didn't have these things in life, then he would have to listen to me talk about the MCU and Fast and the Furious till days in, and then he would, just end up crying afterwards. So, Joel, what is the last piece of casting news that involves Fantastic Beasts and where to find them? Part 2.
Yeah, this is a big update because there have been a bunch of people added to the cast. It starts production pretty soon, or it's in production, I should say. And there's some new names that have been added. The biggest ones are a really weird pair to like even say together. Jessica Williams, who is one of the correspondents, quote unquote, on The Daily Show and had her own Netflix movie just not long ago, is going to be added to the role. Her role hasn't been revealed. I'm guessing that she's a Lestrange because Zoe Kravitz is going to be returning as Lita Lestrange. That's what I'm guessing. Obviously, we have no idea yet. That's interesting. And then Brontis Jodorowsky is the son of the legendary director Alejandro Jodorowsky, and he's been added to the film as Nicholas Flamel. Pretty much like anybody who is deep into alchemy will know that this is a real person, but it's also a character in the series based on that person. He's just an immortal version of himself. And that's who Jodorowsky's going to play. And I'm just going to remind some people that Nicholas Flamel is going to be like 560 years old or something in this story. So that's going to be interesting to see the old age makeup. Unless he's literally immortal and just looks the same, is going to be crazy. But we also had some other characters that were added. Torquil Travers, who is, I think, the grandfather of one of Voldemort's Death Eaters, is going to be played by an actor named Derek Riddle. And also a woman is going to be playing, named Poppy Corby Took or something, is going to be playing a character named Rosier. And he's another Death Eater. I'm assuming that's probably a mother or a grandmother, something like that. So that's for fans. That's some deep info for fans. Of course, they announced not long ago that Jude Law is going to be the young Albus Dumbledore, and then they added Callum Turner from Green Room and Chase's favorite movie ever, The Only Living Boy in New York. He's going to be Theseus Scamander, who is the war hero brother, I believe, of Newt's that they mentioned offhand in the first one. And yeah, this is pretty neat. I'm loving seeing this take place. I obviously was a fan of the first one, and yeah, I can't wait to see where this story takes everybody in the narrative.
Is there any other part of the other casting? Is any of them that tickle your fancy a little bit?
It's kind of hard because most of them we don't really know. I know that there's Victoria Yates from Call the Midwife has been added as a character named Bunty. I have no idea who that is. And also, I recognize the name. I don't know what she's from, but Fiona Glasscott's been added. I'm mostly interested to see who Jessica Williams plays, because that's some interesting casting. And the reason that I'm excited about that casting is because, especially now that she's screenwriter, Joe Rowling has deep, she has approval on everybody. So, with the first one, people were like, this is such a weird cast, as it kind of built up with, Dan Fogler and Jon Voight and Alison Sudol and Eddie Redmayne, all these, Carmen Ejogo, all these people, and I was just more and more excited because I knew that Rowling had the the power to okay the casting and likely had a hand in it. So Jessica Williams is a noted Harry Potter fan. She's brought that up variously on the Daily Show before. She's used it, the information in little segments that she hosted on the show. And all of it. So she obviously went in there, wowed them, wowed Rowling, and got the role. And I mean, I can imagine that when she heard, I'm just going to guess that she died and then came back, and it's the zombie of Jessica Williams who's going to be in the movie. That's what I'm guessing. But yeah, I'm excited about all of them, but to see how all of them fit in. Because Rowling is, deals with characters in an unexpected way, for sure, and I can't wait to see how they all fit into this tapestry. So I'm excited about all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know anyone from the Fantastic Beasts casting, except for Jessica Williams. I did see her movie on Netflix this past summer. It was whatever. I haven't really been impressed by Netflix movies except for like Gerald's Game and like maybe one other. To be honest with you, like they're all kind of just average. But I mean, she was fine in the movie. Joel, I gotta get your hot take on this Hugh Hefner thing. What's going on over there? What's going on in that Joel head of yours?
Well, as the kids of today might put it, it's problematic, the movie, because Jared Leto has, quite the past, and Hugh Hefner was, famous for creating Playboy, and in part of that he sexualized kids to do it because a lot of his models in the early days were like 12 and 14. So the casting of this actor in this role is really weird, and it's going to be like the topic of conversation. Setting the baggage aside, he does look quite like him, which is something that I noticed. He looks like younger Hugh Hefner. So it's, a physical match. It's just the weird, it's like casting, I don't know, Chris Brown as Bill Cosby or something. It would just be, it's just weird and odd. I mean, as an actor, he's good, and I loved him in the movie that we're about to talk about. I thought that he had a really neat role. I thought he was really impressive in Dallas Buyers Club. I'm not gonna mention the Joker. That's just not gonna bring that up. I don't think he was very good in that, but this will be a different kind of thing for him. Here's the other thing, and somebody brought it up, and it actually is a good question. He became kind of infamous on the set of Suicide Squad for sending cast members used condoms as a joke. So playing Hugh Hefner is going to be a weird thing to watch that happen, because of his disposition toward shocking behavior in the name of method acting is just very weird. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to the other casting that we announced, it's basically like you said. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like Jenny Slate. I liked her. I haven't seen the last season of Parks and Rec, but I've seen every other season, and she's in that as with Ben. I think it's Ben Schwartz.
Yeah, his brother and sister. They're so good.
Yeah, brother and sister's absolutely hilarious. And I loved her in Obvious Child a couple years ago. So it's neat to see that she's getting something like that. Kate Winslet, I'm obviously up to see her in anything. Like you, it's definitely neat that she's getting back together with good old Jim. And then Judy Greer, what perfect casting.
I know, right?
She looks like she could be Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter. Or
it's amazing.
Related to her in some way. And so that's kind of perfect. I like that a lot. But yeah, there's really not much to say about any of them, except for the Fantastic Beasts, just because there's so many, and then the Jared Leto thing because of the shared pasts of sexual deviancy, if you will.
It's so weird because when you look up Hugh Hefner, like after he died, like he was one of the most complex men I've ever read about. Like, yeah, you're right. Like he sexualized young girls, so that's utterly disgusting. But he was also a proponent for women's rights, and it's just like it's so weird. Like he had good, he had terrible. Like
yeah, I mean, he was a terrible person who kind of maybe accidentally happened upon some good stuff. It's certainly a death that shifted a lot of things in pop culture. I mean, whatever anybody has to think about the guy, his death is one of the most significant events of the year. That doesn't involve like death, mass death, because he revolutionized sexuality in the '60s. There's no denying that. Whatever else he did during that time that was awful, he also did that. I mean, he was an activist for that. Maybe it was double-handed with the fact that he also did this stuff with kids that's awful and unforgivable, but he was an incredibly influential figure. So clearly they were going to make a movie about him at some point. I think who was previously attached to it? It was somebody else, right? There was
I'm not really sure.
Leto, but I think it was a different director. Anyway, Brett Ratner, by the way, what a weird choice for a director for this project. It's just so weird. I can't put a finger on that guy's career.
Okay, can I say something about Brett Ratner? All right, like I realize that he comes across as like one of the douchiest people ever, which he probably is. He is a terrible director. However, his Rat Pack production company has been producing some good stuff, and I'm glad that like he's shifting, his producing into like great material. The Revenant was produced by him. Black Mass, some Lego movies, War Dogs, Rules Don't Apply. Shit, I Saw the Light. Truth, The Water Diviner. I mean, he's done some interesting stuff in terms of his producing company, so I'll give him credit on that. But yeah, he's a terrible director. I
liked X-Men: The Last Stand. I didn't see Red Dragon, but I can't think of anything else he directed. I tolerated Tower Heist. But yeah, I can't really think of very much. Rush Hour 3 was awful.
Yeah.
So I can't get a handle on that guy's career. It's such a weird like all over the place thing. He's tackling this. It's probably going to be, unless it receives too much pushback, it's probably going to be a major Oscar contender if it's good enough. Because
I was also going to bring that up because usually movies about the porn industry or anything about porn, it typically doesn't do well. There was a
it's a biopic. That's their thing. I think they liked Boogie Nights quite a bit. It was nominated for several things, and I know that was from PTA and whatever, but nevertheless, they did. And this one's a biopic. It's got a previous Oscar winner in the title role, or maybe not the title role, but the main role. And so I think that all of those things count toward it. The controversy is what counts against it, I think. It could receive so much pushback that it's just one of those things that's dumped out into the theaters. I don't know. It's really going to be interesting to see how that plays out, given the contentiousness of the star and the material put together specifically. And it's going to be very weird. We had a bunch of casting news this week, but last week we had the live-action CG hybrid news, and this week we have more. So Chase, let us know what this wonderful, brilliant piece of news is.
Okay, so I want to know whose idea was this. So, of course, Clifford the Big Red Dog was last week. I want to know whose idea was that. Whose drunken idea at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday was this idea? Sonic the Hedgehog is coming, and it's going to be a live-action CGI hybrid. Fucking why? Just like with Clifford the Big Red Dog. Can you imagine this, Joel? Can you imagine the main character harboring this mutated blue hedgehog that's talking and has adorable shoes on, and having his neighbors go, "What the fuck is wrong with your dog?" Like, how is this going to play out in the real world? We have this this blue hedgehog who adorably has shoes on, and what is he going to be running from the cops? What is he going to be running in a marathon? Like, what the fuck is this movie going to be about? Like, hey, Sonic, I'm feeling lazy. Can you go get my groceries? Sure, fam. And he gets it and he comes back in 2 seconds. It's like, what is the plot going to be? Who is this going to appeal towards? Like, it's just so stupid. I can't wait until this is a success because, it's this country and the Emoji Movie did pretty well, to where they're going to announce a CGI live action hybrid of Mario, and we're gonna have this like midget Italian plumber like running around town like fixing people's plumbing, and it's just gonna be absolutely wonderful.
They're just gonna remake the '93 movie. That's
probably, but they want to have a rivalry between Sonic and Mario, so obviously they're gonna have it built that way. But whatever. Anyways, back to this story. Why? Just who is going to pay actual currency to see this? Joel, can you answer that question for me?
I mean, hey, kids, you thought that the new Pennywise the Dancing Clown was frightening? Get a load of this. This is going to be weird and unsettling to look at. A blue creation that's going to be semi-photorealistic, interacting with what? Doesn't he exist in like a fantasy world? I don't know. It's like, is this going to be a Jungle Book type of thing where it's one person and then everything else is cartoon? That's what it's going to be, and it's just a terrible idea. You know, I played one of the games offhand. I can't remember what it was about. I don't think that these games have any plot. I don't understand what
it collects coins.
I mean, they're probably gonna go the My Little Pony route with it in terms of it's just gonna be a generic fantasy, you know, and then it's just gonna be really boring and forgettable.
Exactly, and I take that back. It's not coins; it's rings. But still, you get my point. That's the whole point of the game: is you collect the rings. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, you know how I was talking? I think I was talking about it on the show a while back about the fact that no director has seemed to bridge this gap between movies and video games because, you know, all the relevant information in a video game you're directly interacting with. And yet the redundant stuff is in the cinematic scenes. So the point of a video game is to directly interact with the information that you get. With movies, you're finding it out, you know, kind of you're not playing with a game. You're on the same level as the game, even though it's planned out. You're taking every step to get to the next step. In the movies, it's already at the next step. There's already, you know, this. It's not interactive, and no director's tried to figure that out yet. This movie's probably not going to be the one to do it, considering there's so little plot. It's just why?
It's slated for next year, by the way. Just to let everyone know, it's coming next year. So this is like a very like sudden thing that's going to happen.
I'm not emotionally prepared. I think it's a terrible idea. I mean, it's kind of a worse idea than Clifford because at least Clifford has a plot. Even if it's a really dumb plot, it's just about a girl who meets a big dog. Here, it's going to be this terrifying looking visual effects creation gathering rings or whatever, coins, whatever you said it was and wasn't. It's just a terrible idea. They need to we just need to rethink this whole Hollywood thing. Let's just start over. For 2020, just build a new thing. A24, Netflix, and Blumhouse can just distribute everything.
So what you're saying is we're gonna just abolish everything. We're gonna erase history and we're gonna start fresh.
We are just going to delete it all. We already have proven this year that we're in the worst timeline. Let's just enter the right one. Let's just abolish it. Just start over. Okay?
Joel, you sound almost as cynical as the first trailer we're about to talk about.
Oh boy, yeah. Maybe not quite as much. Before we get to that, though, I think that's it for the news. And I don't have. I mean, I guess the Fantastic Beasts casting is my favorite thing. I don't know. All the casting news, basically. That's the only good bit of news.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the other stuff was depressing. That's why we kind of rushed through it this time. But before we get to the trailers, you know, I told y'all that it would probably be mid-October when I updated y'all on Oscar stuff. But actually, I'm going to go ahead and start a series now that's going to run through January. And it's basically just kind of handicapping the Oscar race as it goes, you know, taking a couple of categories at a time and just discussing very quickly what the big contenders are, what the perceived frontrunners are, if there are any. And obviously right now I'm not going to start with Best Picture because there's a lot of movement and no direction as of yet. So I'm going to be starting with 3 kind of just random categories. The first one that I'm going to start with is Best Animated Feature. I'm going to say this. It's not been a great year for animated movies. I think I've only liked 3. Thinking offhand, I think that might have been it. Your Name, let me think. So, in fact, let me just look real fast while I'm talking. So yeah, it's not been a great year for animated movies, and there haven't been a lot of, seriously gigantic, huge contenders here. One of the major ones that you might think is a contender is Your Name, except that one was submitted last year as a contender for foreign language, and because of some random little rules, it was then considered also for animated features. So that's not a contender this year. Something like My Life as a Zucchini was already nominated. The Red Turtle, I consider that 2017, but whatever, was also nominated. So those are like the really good ones. And then we get into stuff that's just been underperforming like crazy. Stuff like the Emoji Movie did okay, but it's kind of a non-event. The stuff like Smurfs, Rock Dog, The Nut Job 2, Cars 3, Despicable Me 3, even, and I know that Chase is going to hate me for this, something like Captain Underpants. These are all basically non-events in the race. Like they're just not being talked about. They're not being considered. But I think that the race this year has been kind of evenly spaced out between all of the major companies that you might think of, with a couple of outliers. G-Kids and Studio Ghibli have stuff like The Breadwinner, which is going to be a major contender, Mary and the Witch's Flower, which is an anime from Hiramasa Yonebayashi of When Marnie Was There, and The Secret World of Arrietty. That one's going to be a major contender. In This Corner of the World is a story about set in, I think, Nagasaki or Hiroshima, somewhere around there. So those 3 are kind of the indie titles that could get in. I think The Breadwinner is going to be the one that gets in, that's getting a lot of really positive notices. Otherwise, we have both of the Lego movies. Those are certainly both major contenders, but I think that it's going to be the Lego Batman movie. Ninjago underperformed at the box office. It's got kind of middling reception, but the Lego Batman movie is one of the best reviewed movies of the year. So I think that that's going to be a major contender. Blue Sky's got Ferdinand coming up. That's obviously a contender. And then, you got the My Little Pony, the movie's going to be something that kind of exists on the bubble. I'll get into that later on. I'm just going to reveal that now. That's one of my reviews that I'm going to be giving this week. I think that one's going to be sort of on the bubble. I think it might be a little more respected than it should be by the Academy. But you have the 3 big ones: Pixar, Warner Brothers with Lego, and then DreamWorks. And Pixar and DreamWorks this year they each have 2 movies. And 2 movies, right? Yeah, 2 movies. So with Pixar, Cars 3, like I said, non-event. It underperformed. Nobody's been talking about it. It's not going to be on the Academy's mind. Just like Cars 2 did not get nominated, this will not. And I think that their big player is Coco, and I think that Coco is going to win. I'm just going to say that right now. I think we have a clear lock with this one. But with DreamWorks, it's interesting because Captain Underpants kind of delighted a lot of people this summer. However, basically nobody's talking about this movie. There's no buzz about it in the Academy circles that I've heard about. And the one that's sadly kind of going to get in for them, I think, is going to be The Boss Baby, which is very sad. Chase and I both hate this movie, and it's kind of low common denominator for them, but it's kind of the big moneymaker of the two. And so, if Boss Baby doesn't get in, I suspect that Mary and the Witch's Flower will. It's a festival title. It's really well respected, and I think that could be getting in. So to wrap up, I think that the 5 nominees are going to be The Boss Baby, The Breadwinner, Coco, Ferdinand, and the Lego Batman movie. I think that we can kind of put a pin in those right now, and then I'll check back, at the end of the whole deal in February when we give our final predictions. They'll probably change. Although I'm gonna just say it, I don't think they're gonna change a lot, to be honest. Stuff like The Star that's coming out, that's not gonna make any dents. So the next category that I'm gonna talk about is makeup and hairstyling, and I'm just gonna make this quick. I don't really see much point in dragging it out. Basically, there's gonna be one fantasy nominee, and that's gonna be The Shape of Water. There always is at least one. Last year there was 2, but I think that this year there are not a lot of blockbusters that use makeup that really convinced me as contenders. So I'm going to say that The Shape of Water is going to be the big contender. That's a fantasy title. And then I, Tonya, if that even comes out this year, is going to be the big one because it transforms Margot Robbie into Tonya Harding and is pretty impressive, as I hear. So but the big one, the Iron Lady of this year, if you will, is Darkest Hour, which transforms Gary Oldman into Winston Churchill, and they're kind of different body sizes, so that's going to be a major contender. And I think that the 3 nominees are going to be Darkest Hour, I, Tonya, and The Shape of Water, with Darkest Hour taking it home. Our last category of the week, and then we'll move on to the trailers, is visual effects. This is actually fairly stacked. It's a pretty impressive array this year of nominees, or contenders to be nominees. But I will say that a lot of the ones that you might think are obvious, such as stuff like The Mummy and Pirates of the Caribbean, Power Rangers, Valerian, Alien, I don't think any of these are, I think that they're contenders. I don't think that they're very serious contenders. I think that this year is going to be dominated by Disney. So much so that I believe that it's going to be a race on their part between Star Wars and Thor. But Beauty and the Beast and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 are right on the bubble. I think that those are the ones that are kind of right outside, could easily sneak in and steal it from Dunkirk, which I think is kind of on the edge here. But I think that Dunkirk is just such an impressive array of minimal CG and a lot of practical effects. It basically gets the Iron Man kind of nomination from 2008. In comparison to the other 2 that were nominated that year, it was the quieter nominee, the one that had fewer visual effects, but they were impressive enough to get in. And then you have the 2 big wigs, the 2 that are going to be fighting it out. War for the Planet of the Apes, for the fact that it's a kind of a new landmark, and Blade Runner 2049, which has a lot of CGI, but also a lot of practical work in there as well that's mixed in with the CG. However, I think that the winner is going to be Blade Runner 2049, and the reason is because the Apes franchise has not done well in terms of being nominated and winning. Hugo took the Oscar when Rise was nominated, and Interstellar, I think, right? Yeah, Interstellar took the Oscar when Dawn was nominated. And I think that this year it's going to lose it again, as much as I hate to say that. I think that it's going to just kind of come in second. So the 5 nominees, I think that they're going to be Blade Runner 2049, Star Wars The Last Jedi, Dunkirk, Thor Ragnarok is going to be the major one for Marvel this year, I think, in terms of being nominated, and then War for the Planet of the Apes, with Blade Runner 2049 being the winner. So that's kind of the update. That's what I'm going to give y'all for now. and I'll be coming back 2 weeks from now with sound editing and sound mixing, and I'll handicap those. So, Chase, any offhand thoughts?
You know, when we saw The Boss Baby, I think I turned to Joel and I was like, you know, this is it. This is the pit of animation right here. We just witnessed it, and Joel is correct. It's probably going to get nominated. And it makes me want to throw up. But no, those are some great picks indeed. And when you brought up Blade Runner 2049, we're about to talk about all of that, so that's going to be good stuff. But yeah, those are pretty interesting picks. Yeah, let's jump into the trailers now. There were a few of them that dropped this week. A lot to talk about, actually, and all of them are pretty much small except for one of them. The first one is basically the Belko Experiment Part 2, Mayhem, which is set in the office. There's an infection that plagues the employees. There's a government shutdown, and they go insane because the virus makes them go crazy, and they start killing each other. Sure. Because I didn't know what the trailer was. It was the only one on the list that Joel sent me, and I was like, ooh, I guess I missed this one. What is this? And so I clicked on it, I watched it, and I was like, oh no, this is the Belko Experiment. I kept playing it, and I was like, oh no, this is the Belko Experiment. So instead of like a chip implanted in their head, it's a disease, and it's like, we just saw this, and I didn't really care for the Belko Experiment, and I'm a sick fuck. I like the Saw films, so I don't mind torture porn when it's done right, but I thought the Belko Experiment was just, I don't know, I didn't really care for it, to be honest with you, and this one just looks like it's taking out all the story elements that the Belko Experiment tried to do, and basically just make it straight up violent. And, you know, if you like these movies, it's cool. I mean, I like these movies, but I don't really want to sit through another one of these movies. It looks sadistic. It looks gory. One of the quotes in the trailer said, "The Office Space meets The Purge," which is a fascinating duo for sure. I didn't really care for it, to be honest with you. Yeah. So, Joel, Mayhem, does it get you pumped to go see that?
I actually like this trailer. I think it looks a little more pointed than the Belko Experiment, which I thought was okay. I wasn't a huge fan of it by the end. I felt like it just kind of became, like you said, a gore fest. I think that this might have at least a little bit more of a pointed satirical element that, the office life is the virus.
Yeah, that could be.
I think that they could, if they choose to, go in some neat directions with that. It does basically look like another Belko Experiment, though. It was shockingly similar, and I mean, even in like visual tone, it's very similar. So, but I think it looks solid. It's not my favorite trailer of the week, and there's really not much to say about it. There's really not much to say about our next trailer. Yeah, so Pacific Rim Uprising. This is, as the title suggests, the sequel to 2013's Pacific Rim. There is one good thing about this trailer, and it actually is tied into the one majorly disappointing thing about the first movie, which, I thought was fine overall. I thought it was fun, but I could not see the action scenes. They were all filmed at night or, in dark spaces and in 3D, which darkens the image by 20%. And it was just really hard to see. Not that I'm completely blind. I do wear glasses. I'm not completely blind. But it was just hard to kind of get a sense of the geography and the choreography of fights between the Jaegers and the, whatever they're called, the kaiju. It was very hard. So it looks like this sequel has fixed that, because it looks like 90% of the action takes place in the daytime. So that's one thing to be thankful for. But Chase, I gotta say, this movie basically just looks like a Transformers movie to me. That's what it is. I mean, they basically are Transformers. They just don't transform into cars. That's all of it. That's the all of it. It looks dumb. I'm glad to see John Boyega get work, but I wish he wouldn't waste his time with something that looks as bad as this. I I'll see it. It comes out March 23rd, right before Ready Player One, and like right after some other big thing. I can't remember. Anyway, so I'll see it. It'll be the movie that we talk about that week, I'm sure. But this just does not look good to me. And I'm curious to hear what you think, because I actually saw this not knowing that we were getting it in front of Blade Runner 2049. So all of a sudden I was watching a Pacific Rim trailer, and I had no idea I was going to be doing that. So I was wondering, did you watch it online before you saw it in theaters?
So I saw it online, and ironically enough, did not play it in front of Blade Runner, because they are both Warner Brothers products, and I kind of figured they would have. Well, did they? I don't remember. Like, there was a lot of trailers that happened before, and maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
It's one of those that just kind of seeps into the brain and then leaves out the other.
Exactly. So here's what I will say. I like the first one, and I'm actually going to go against Joel on his whole entire thought process on it, and I'll explain myself. But don't worry, folks, that is not the only fight on today's pay-per-view event. Mommy and Daddy will fight about the main topic of the show as well. Okay, so I like the first Pacific Rim. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I will disagree with Joel. I think the nighttime scenes actually worked, and its benefit when you see this trailer. Now, when you watch the first movie, not knowing if there was going to be a sequel or not, yeah, you can argue that some of the nighttime scenes were a little too dark, and you can't really see what was going on. And the brightest scene in the entire movie is when one of the Jaegers flew up into space, and you saw the sun kind of pop up on the horizon. Now, when you see this trailer for the sequel, I agree with Joel. It looks like a Transformers film, but the problem is the daytime fighting. It actually looks like a video game. Like, I cannot believe that I'm about to back up darkened choreography, because at least with the first one, it looked semi-believable that these things were happening in the middle of the city. When all those fight scenes were happening in the daytime, I don't know what it was with the sky or the buildings or the entire background, but it looked so fake. I was convinced that this was a trailer for a Pacific Rim video game. Like, that's how bad it looked. So, as a fan of the first one, I will be the first one to tell you that this trailer to the sequel does not look good, and the CGI looks absolutely horrendous, and it reminds me so much of a Transformers film. And
I will say,
just last thing, Joel. It's also a damn shame to see Charlie Day just so naked on his face like that. When was the last time Charlie Day had no beard? It was just weird. It was off-putting, and I was like, no, Charlie Day, grow your beard back. Anyways, that's all I have on that trailer. Didn't really care for it, and the CGI is horrendous in the daytime. Joel, what were you about to rebuttal with?
I was just going to say that I am totally with you on the level of the visual effects. My whole thing was that I was going to at least be able to see them. They on themselves, it looks like a giant video game. You're right. It does not look visually pretty. I'm very slowly growing tired of the gigantic, toy movie aesthetic with, it looks like plastic basically, and it does not look good. But my whole thing was at least I'll be able to see what was going on.
Trust me, I get that, but in comparison, it makes the first one look really great, and that is in dark choreography. So I don't know, man. It's one of those things where I was excited for the sequel. Steven DeKnight was directing, and he's very notorious for television. Did Spartacus, and he was also the kind of front runner or the showrunner for the first season of Daredevil. So the guy's got some really great credits to his name. It's just that this is his kind of first film feature directorial debut, and it does not look good. It's not a good look as of right now. They do have 5 months to polish up the CGI, so I don't know how that will do, but yeah. So Pacific Rim Uprising, not a fan. The next trailer
Not great, Bob, as the kids say right
Yeah,
now.
no, not great indeed. But what is great, which I didn't think would be, because I thought it was just going to be some weirdo robot movie, is Replicas, starring. Oh shit! What was the line I always do? Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. Keanu Reeves, good old John Wick fame. He's not even known for The Matrix anymore. He might as well just be known for John Wick. He stars in this one. Who's his wife? Alice Eve, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so she was in Star Trek Into Darkness, and also that pretty underrated comedy, I believe. She's Not That Into You, or no, not that one. She's Out of My League. Sorry, yeah, excuse me.
Really underrated movie, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a really funny movie. That was the first time I ever saw T.J. Miller, and ironically, T.J. Miller and the other good-looking guy in the group, they were both in Cloverfield. So anyways, they are a married couple, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, you're like, that's cool. He's like a scientist and some shit, and I mean, it's kind of hard not to talk about it because this is in the trailer, and you know, I didn't realize this was the twist in the movie, but his wife and his kids die in a car accident. He brings them back as basically robots, replicas, and they start to question their existence and whatnot. I gotta tell you, I kind of liked it. It kind of reminded me of what I wanted in iRobot, to be honest with you, to where iRobot was fine. It was an entertaining Will Smith movie with a screaming Shia LaBeouf in the background, but for this one, I couldn't really pinpoint why I liked it so much until I read a comment in the YouTube section. It was the top one. It was liked the most, and I was like, that's exactly what I was thinking about. So I'm not going to take credit for this, but I totally agree with this person. They said it looks like a really cool modern version of Frankenstein, which I'm cool with, because Frankenstein is one of my favorite stories of all time. I even like some of their adaptations they made into film. But they kind of equated it to that, and I was like, that's exactly what I was trying to put into words, but I couldn't really do that. But that's why I like it so much. It kind of reminds me of like a Frankenstein type of story, just set in more of an AI type of setting. I gotta tell you, I really liked it. I like the actual, like, just overall kind of graduation of, or, you know, gradual, like, kind of progression of the trailer, and how it kind of divulged into this really, like, dark, like, you know, just existence between AI and stuff, which, you know, is really cool, because we're about to talk about a movie with the exact type of theme and whatnot. So, but I really like this one. It's really low budget. It kind of just, I like the way it's not a big budget. It's just a very intimate type of story. It's going to be more grounded, it seems. So I don't know. I really enjoyed the trailer quite a bit. And spoiler alert, it's my favorite one of the week. And Keanu Reeves, like I said, John Wick has, like, revived this man's career to a point where, like, it's kind of impressive the amount of work he's put in since John Wick kind of blew up. Now, he hasn't really been perfect after John Wick, knock knock, but I'm glad that he's getting more work, and this one looks like another great one to kind of add under his indie belt, if you will. So, Joel, I know I told Joel through text that I really like the Replicas trailer. I don't know how he feels about it. So, Joel, am I wrong? Am I right? Are you going to make me cry? What's going on? What are we thinking about over there?
No, it looks really intriguing. It might be my favorite concept of a movie that's had a trailer this week. I don't know if it's my favorite trailer. I think it's a really weirdly cut trailer, actually. But it does look very intriguing. And Keanu Reeves, you're right. I love the guy. He's a great actor. Really underrated. You know, he has a reputation as having like this very specific personality, which is that he has no personality, but I think he does. I think that he just is kind of famous for roles that didn't quite utilize his personality. But I think he himself is great. And I've loved the guy since Speed, really. He's great in that movie. So certainly an intriguing trailer. It'll be asking very tough questions about the nature of existence, because, you know, there's this little line in the trailer where Alice Eve's character says, "I'm dead." And I think that the movie is going to explore that really well, but also through, you know, this thriller element that seems entirely organic, because what happens when you push this to the limit, this idea of human cloning. And it's very, very interesting. Like, if this person is a clone of a dead person, does she exist? Must you talk about that person in the past tense, as one does when a person has died? Simply because they are a genetic clone, they are not the person's whole essence. It's a very interesting, very, very interesting premise, and a lot of philosophical, moral kind of questions coming up. And I can't wait to see it. We don't even know when it comes out. It doesn't have a release date. It just said next year. So I'm curious to find that out.
So
sure.
I have to bring this up before you get into the next trailer, but believe it or not, this is going to sound very weird, but you have to give this movie's release credit to 47 Meters Down. Now you're thinking to yourself, how is that even possible? Okay, so when I saw 47 Meters Down earlier this summer, it had a production logo called, not even joking, where it sounds like someone's embezzling money, Entertainment Studios Motion Pictures. And so I have never heard of them in my life. And so I actually liked 47 Meters Down for what it was. It was definitely more entertaining than their second follow-up, which was Friend Request. Fucking gross. That is a terrible movie. But 47 Meters Down was so successful that Entertainment Studios Motion Pictures is feeling more confident to release movies that they've bought from people. Replicas is one of them. So I have a feeling that Replicas will probably be the best thing they will have released so far, which is great because I hope Replicas captures that John Wick success and people will go see it. That way...
I suspect they'll put it out in March. It feels like something, March or April, that they would put out around that time.
Yeah, you're probably right. So I'm glad that 47 Meters Down was a success because we would have never gotten the distribution of this movie. So that's awesome. So
Entertainment Studios Motion Pictures sounds totally legit. What are you talking about?
You know what's really funny? I know I brought this up a million times, but it's still hilarious. There's a place down from where I work where if my coworker and I go get something to eat, we always pass it. It's literally called, I'm not even joking, it's just insurance. And it's like someone is hiding something there. And it's exactly what I think about when I see the studio. This is the most generic studio name ever to where, like, is someone evading taxes? What's going on? So, it's just hilarious. But I'm sure that's not what they're doing. It's absolutely just funny when I see places just called, like, insurance or Entertainment Studio Motion Picture. It's just so weird.
It's so strange. So speaking of your favorite trailer, mine might be our next one, which is Roman J. Israel. They said it in a weird way. I thought it might be just Israel Esquire. This is Dan Gilroy's follow-up to Nightcrawler, and it's got Denzel Washington as, you'll never believe this, Roman J. Israel Esquire. Yeah, this one looks really solid. It basically looks like a generic biopic, but nevertheless, I'm impressed that they were able to put out a trailer for this a month before the movie comes out. Less than a month, actually, because it comes out in limited release on November 3rd. So this will be interesting because we also have the Post and PTA's newest. So are they going to do the same thing? I guess they would. But nevertheless, I was really impressed by this. It's as a trailer, it was really well edited. As a movie, it looks, again, like your basic biopic. But yeah, I liked it. I liked the editing of the trailer quite a bit. It really captured. It had an energy. It captured your attention. That's what trailers are supposed to do. So just as a piece of editing, it was really impressive, and I'm liking what I'm seeing.
So I have to preface this by saying this because when I watched the trailer, something wasn't really hitting me right, and it's not the trailer's fault because I actually 100% agree with Joel on everything he just said. This is more of a personal preference. The fact that Dan Gilroy had Nightcrawler come out before this, and Nightcrawler was so good, I was expecting something else along those lines in terms of like a dark thriller. This is more of like a drama thriller, and I don't mind dramas. I prefer more of the darker stuff, and Nightcrawler was so good that like that's what I associate Dan Gilroy with now. And so this is not the trailer's fault. This is more of a personal preference. I thought the trailer was fine. Denzel Washington looks great. It's like you said, it had like a nice energy to it and a nice kind of like tensional pace to it that was really, really great, and you can really grasp. Just as a personal thing, I kind of wished his next film was another darker follow-up, kind of like a Nightcrawler. So, the trailer looks fine. I will still go see it because I love Nightcrawler so much, and I want to see his follow-up to it. But I just, drama thrillers are fine. I wanted another kind of Nightcrawler-esque type movie. Is that so wrong for me to say?
No, not at all. I would love to see him do another Nightcrawler, but Nightcrawler was actually kind of out of character for him, I think, in terms of just how it was. But
he was so good at it, though, that like that's what I established him with as now.
It was almost on my top 10 that year, somewhere right outside it. But it's a really good movie. This one doesn't look like it's gonna capture as much attention as that one is. In terms of the filmmaking, but the story certainly looks less interesting. But what I want though is Dan Gilroy to make one movie a year. So go ahead and take our next trailer, Chase, which is from a director who does that. I don't know.
What a weird segue. You're like, Dan Gilroy, make a movie a year. Speaking of making a movie. Okay, so this next trailer is the movie, the fifth movie in the Wonder franchise this year, with Wonder Woman, Professor Marsden in the Wonder Woman, Wonderstruck, and now Wonder Wheel. What the fuck is up with Wonder this year? Anyways, Wonder Wheel. Joel, did you even think about that? Wonder Wheel is the new Woody Allen film. And this one stars good old JT himself, Justin Timberlake, and Kate Winslet. We just got done talking about her. And probably my favorite aspect of the entire trailer is Mr. Jim Belushi, who is coming back, popping up in little movies every now and then. And, of course, he was in the Twin Peaks Return that just ended a few weeks ago. And he was really great in that. This one tells just about people growing up in the 1950s, lifeguards, romance, domestic abuse, the usual Woody Allen stuff. So what Joel's problem with Replicas is the problem I had with this one. The editing in this trailer was terrible. It was an oddly cut trailer to where there was really no sense of flow. It was just more of like, let's show this actor yelling. Let's show this actor saying an important line. Let's show this actor doing something cool and get that Oscar nomination rather than focusing on a story to hook you. Yes, are the production design and the costumes extravagant and colorful? Absolutely. I was drawn into it with just the world that Woody created. That's not the problem. It's just the way it was put together. It was just very jaded and it didn't really seem like it had any type of flow to it. But my favorite part about the trailer is Jim Belushi. He looks like he's going to kind of give us a performance that we haven't really seen in a very long time. But his kind of like demeanor in this trailer reminded me of how he was in Twin Peaks, where in Twin Peaks he played a casino owner and he was very mobster-like, and so he had that kind of aggression to him. And so for this trailer, he is an abuser. He's got that aggressive mentality, so it looks like we're going to see something completely different than, that according to Jim guy on that terrible show. And of course he's brothers with James Belushi as well, so like he comes from a line of talented family members, but it's just funny that his brother was always known as like the best one, and then of course Jim came out with his show. It's like whatever, if you like sitcoms, sure. And then he starts kind of re-emerging recently, doing these kind of darker roles, and it looks like he has found his niche. So I'm happy for him. He looks great for sure. I've always been a fan of Justin Timberlake. I actually like most of the movies that he's done. Kate Winslet, sure. So Woody Allen's casting has never been a problem, but the editing of this trailer is horrendous. So Joel, I know that you are probably more of a Woody Allen fan than I am. I appreciate his movies, but I don't go like berserko when I hear his name or anything. So when I watched the trailer, I think this was probably the only one this week where I was like, This is the one I'm most curious about Joel and what he thought, and maybe he's thinking the same thing about the editing, because I was like, who released this? Who okayed this? So, Joel, what's your thoughts?
It was bizarrely edited. I'm not a huge Woody Allen fan, and that's because I haven't seen a lot of his works. He's made a lot of movies, and it takes a lot of time to move all through them. But I have liked some of the ones that I've seen, and I've recently caught up with Hannah and Her Sisters from 1986, I think. And that one was good. It's got this reputation as being his best one, and right now I can't imagine one being better than Crimes and Misdemeanors, which it seems that this is going to be more in line with. Crimes and Misdemeanors was sort of this comedy, but it was also a crime drama, and this seems to be sort of in that vein. It doesn't look as good, but I am very interested in the fact that he's got this really odd cast where it's like Kate Winslet, Justin Timberlake, Jim Belushi, and with Belushi it's like, some of his roots are in drama. He was in Gang Related with Tupac Shakur back in '90s. He played a cop in that one, so he had that sort of same energy. It was, I think, a cop in Detroit or something. I never saw the movie, but I know it was really well received. So it's not just according to Jim. It's a body of work that has a lot of drama, and this seems to be sort of the. I think I brought it up, a couple weeks ago. Andrew Dice Clay in Blue Jasmine. This is sort of the same line of casting where you have this predominantly comic actor taking on a more dramatic role in an ensemble, where he might stick out. Woody Allen's going to find a way that he doesn't. He fits into the ensemble. So it's really interesting, but you're right, it's bizarrely edited. I'm excited to see it, though, and I certainly will.
Yeah, and I only brought up according to Jim because if you want to think about on a commercial level, that's where most people know him from, and so just doing this like 180 flip where he's basically going to be an abuser is going to be something different for people.
It is very, it is quite the turn, for sure, for him, and it's certainly going to be interesting to see how his performance is. So that's it for the trailers, guys. Chase, what was your favorite? Oh yeah, your favorite was Replicas. Mine was probably Roman J. Israel Esquire, and that's because of the editing of the trailer and how it captures the attention of the viewer. But it wasn't like some amazing week, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with on Replicas of what you said, where like I just enjoyed that concept so much where I was like a modern day Frankenstein. I'm down for that. So
it is interesting.
Yeah, so you're right though. It's not really a huge trailer. Next week's trailers guys. We're gonna be talking about Star Wars and probably the Justice League trailer that dropped about a couple hours ago. So next week will be a bigger blockbuster heavy. This was more independent heavy. Besides Pacific Rim, which oddly enough was the worst one, and all the indie ones were actually better. So whatever. So next week is going to be a little bit more intense with the trailers and whatnot. But now, guys, they're out of the way. The news, the trailers, everything swept under that rug, and now we're going to get to one of the most anticipated films of the year, Blade Runner 2049. I'm excited to talk about this because, before Joel and I saw this movie, we saw the TV ads, we saw people talking about it, saying it's like the next masterpiece, like this is an epic just film, you're never going to forget it. It seemed like we were about to watch a classic in the making. Now, I will start off by saying I saw the first Blade Runner, the final cut, ever, for the first time. I'm talking about the movie in general, like 4 days ago. I personally don't understand the hype. I think on a visual level and a world-building level, it is grungy, it is dark, but yet also is dystopian, yet is futuristic. It's got a lot of great elements working for it visually. I thought the story itself was kind of boring. Thought the romance was cheesy as hell. And I thought Roy, is it Roy Batty or Beatty?
Batty.
So, and I thought Roy Batty's monologue at the end, well delivered and acted, I thought was completely out of place throughout the entire movie. And I think people associate that monologue with it being deeper than it actually is. So I think it's a half-baked idea that's visually astounding. So, to be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of the first one. I will still own it, and I will still pop it in every once in a while to wrap my head around how the hell they did some of those effects in the 80s, but that's about it. So that's kind of my relationship with this franchise so far. I was still excited to go see the sequel for sure because I love my boy Gosling, and of course Harrison's coming back, and I love my boy Denis Villeneuve directing it, and I love my boy Roger Deakins. It was a great group of people coming together to possibly make a better movie than what I thought the first one was. So that's my relationship with the first one. I will toss it over to Joel to talk about the first one and his thoughts on that, and we'll dive into this.
Honestly, sort of baffled by the comments there, but
that's okay, Joel. I have a feeling I will be ruffling a lot of feathers today.
Yeah. So before I get into the new one, I'll just say I think that the first film is a masterpiece. I love every second of it. I guess I can understand because, some people do find it cold. I guess it's because it's kind of played at a certain pitch, which is rather slow going. It's deliberately paced. I eat it up. I find it hypnotic. The new film is from director Denis Villeneuve. It's obviously it's actually not as much of a sequel as I anticipated it to be. It's more of a spin-off. But it is, takes place 30 years after it, and it follows, and I'm guessing we can just reveal this because they reveal it in the opening shot.
Whoa. What are you about to reveal? Because I don't want to do any spoilers at all for this movie.
Okay, okay, I'm going to actually pause. I'm going to give my our viewers a bit of context here. So, spoilers are not just facts from the movie. I'm going to put my foot down in front of that and just say that that's the case because this is what I call spoiler phobia. There's a bit of information that's revealed literally in the first 5 minutes that is important to talk about for the plot to even make sense to anybody listening to this review. Because it ties into, dozens of talking points here. So I won't reveal anything from, say, after the 30-minute mark, only to say that, the main character goes on a journey of discovery, both of himself and of an investigation that he's kind of leading, or not really an investigation. I guess he's been hired to do something, and he's doing that thing, and it takes him on a journey that involves some self-discovery. But here's the thing, the Warner Brothers sent out this this release thing for the people who were reviewing it before the movie came out, that a very specific items that they could talk about, which is kind of weird to me because it's basically controlling what you can say. What if you didn't like an aspect that was directly tied to what they consider a spoiler? It's just, it makes the reviewing process completely impossible. So here's the thing. I'm just going to say it because they literally reveal this in the opening scene, and it's important for the character. So Chase, are you okay with this?
I will just say this. I'm not going to do anything like that, but if you want to, we're giving you guys the fair warning right now that if you would consider this a spoiler, we might minorly spoil something. I hope it's not what I think you're going to be doing, because when I sat there, when I was watching, when it started, and that came up, I was like, oh, that's cool. At least we know, for clarity, who this person is and, what type of journey he will go on. So,
I'm just gonna, and it's also I'm not gonna give away every single secret. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about. Well, first of all, spoiler is kind of a dumb word anyway because it requires context to be a spoiler, and it also requires you to experience the thing itself and the experience can't be spoiled unless you just see it. So it's not even really a spoiler. Maybe it's a factual spoiler. I'm not going to give away every single secret about this character. Absolutely not. I'm just going to give away what the first 5 minutes tell us, and then I'll just leave the rest up to you. And that is that we follow a character played by Ryan Gosling, who is a Blade Runner, and of course a Blade Runner hunts down replicants, but it kind of lays out that he's also a replicant. So, and this is very interesting because of where the movie goes from there, but that's what the first 5 minutes tell us. I will tell you that as a little bit of a spoiler myself for the negative parts of my review, that's a majorly frustrating element to this movie. But I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there later on. So I love the original. I was looking forward to the new one, which follows the Ryan Gosling character as he is hired to hunt down replicants. I'll just say that. And it kind of takes them into the path of Jared Leto's character, who is this blind entrepreneur who has found out how to breed replicants to be more obedient. And that's where I'm going to stop. Yes, Harrison Ford's character plays into it. I'm not going to tell you how. Just, the trailers have already revealed that. He's in the movie. I won't tell you how that happens, but obviously he plays a part. So it's interesting because I saw this on Thursday night, and as soon as it was over, I loved it. I thought that it was visionary and terrific and everything. I then saw My Little Pony, and because there's really not much to engage with in that movie beyond very, very broad things, I was able to pay attention to that movie, but I was also thinking about Blade Runner. And I've become a little bit more frustrated with it every day. It's going to reflect in my rating, which does not even remotely reflect my initial response right after the movie was over, because this movie is very frustrating. I think it's pretty good, though. And so those are my initial thoughts. Chase, I'll let you jump into your positives.
So, the way I feel about the first one is exactly how I feel about the sequel, or this reincarnation. It's where it's like, so jumping into the positives, let's just get out of the way. Yes, this is a visual and technically amazing film. Whether you're talking about the gorgeous and stark and kind of hypnotic cinematography by Deakins and his expert lighting, or just this world building of this grungy, futuristic version of California, and just all the set design, and it reminded me of Mad Max Fury Road, where they took so much time and appreciation to building this world. It does help with the experience, and it helps you get involved with the characters and just the overall setting and tone. Like it's just another layer to kind of enhance your experience. So I would say the visual component of it for sure is the best part about the movie. Another great part about the movie is, or a couple great positives, is the acting. I do think everyone does come to play, regardless of what I think of their story arcs and their characters. I do think everyone does come to play, and it was nice to see Harrison Ford actually try a little bit. Jared Leto, I thought, gave a pretty kind of ominous and creepy role. Ryan Gosling is good for what his character is and whatnot. And to accentuate the ominous creepiness a little bit is the music. I really did dig the kind of techno, ear-bleeding music that they had. It might have been a little too loud, but the music was kind of bombastic and in your face, but it really kind of captured the overall setting and tone of Blade Runner 2049. That's all I have for the positives, Joel. My negatives pretty much lie within the story and how people misconstrue visual greatness for masterpiece, but hey, I won't go there. So that's all my positives for me. What about you, sir?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I think, and maybe this will tie more into my negatives, and it should be a common kept for that. But I think that there are a lot of people overreacting to this movie quite a bit. I think that they have stayed in the mode that I was in right after I got out of it, and then I guess just kind of refused to come back to reality. I don't know. It's kind of hard not to see hang-ups in this plot. However, here's the thing. My positives have to do with the world building, and I think that they slightly outweigh the negatives with storytelling, and I'll tell you why. So, yes, the number one thing is the cinematography, which, there's burnt oranges, there's the steely grays of interiors, there's it makes Earth what is basically Earth, but it makes it look alien. It sort of achieves a similar effect in that way, the cinematography, in that way to something like Under the Skin, which made Scotland look like completely, a place that's not on the planet Earth.
I mean, like, the best way to phrase what Joel said was, yes, the whole setting of this movie looks very alien and kind of otherworldly, but at the same time, it's believable because I can actually see Earth becoming this in the future if we don't take care of it.
Yeah, it looks like it functions as Earth, just as an Earth that we do not know. And that's really fascinating, and it actually kind of ties into some of the ideas that it, I think, successfully tackles. And I think that that's where I'll bleed into my next one, which is that this is a very dystopian future where the attitude toward artificial intelligence, or all the attitudes that we have right now, are far, far, far in the past. Because here we have a creation that is known as Joy, played by Ana de Armas, who can feel she's a hologram, but she can feel the full range of human emotions. And she can synchronize movement with people, as we see in a pretty bizarrely placed sex scene. But the effect is neat. She can pass through solid things, and the visual effects to bring her to life are really impressive. And I think that it actually sort of unintentionally captures an idea that the movie's working with, which is that we kind of went too far with the AI. That's where replicants came in, and that's a very interesting idea. I think that it carries it through a lot of the wheel spinning of the plot in the first part of this movie, because it seems grounded to me. And that was a relief. Also, with the storytelling, I will say, without giving anything away, I'm literally just going to make this comment, and that's it, because there's a lot of stuff in the last half that I don't even want to talk about. But everything from Harrison Ford onward completely mesmerized me. Even just narratively, I think that it obviously involves action sequences of a sort. But to put the bodies in motion like this in that last half, I think was a very smart decision. If any movie needed to climax with an exciting action sequence, or sequences of action, I should say, then it needed to be this movie. And I think it does that very well. All the plot points that sort of come to fruition there are really fascinating. There are others that are abandoned that are really, really frustrating. That's part of my frustration, but I think that the points of the plot that they do resolve in the last act are all just it does so in a way that does clinch sort of this emotional truth at the end. I think it has that payoff, and so I think that even if it is sort of still wheel spinning, it's a more successful version of that than the entire middle of the movie. I'll get to the middle in a bit. And then the performances, like you said, I thought that Ryan Gosling was really good here at sort of crossing his characters from Drive and Only God Forgives. It was, interestingly enough, like, at least in the details of his performance. It was really fascinating to see him kind of be able to emote without being able to emote. Basically, he does that really well, and I think he does it well here.
Yeah, I mean, given his character and who he is, like, he was actually the perfect casting for displaying those types of emotional scenes, whether it be very cold or very like kind of have like these outburst effects. Like, he's one of those perfect actors for that.
His first outburst is a major shift in the character, and obviously we're not going to go into that, but into the details of it. But he handles that so well, and from then on, his performance changes a little bit. It just changes, and it's really impressive. Harrison Ford, I thought, was terrific. There was a sadness to that character that I thought was really well conveyed by Ford. I think it's better, less. I thought he was terrific in Star Wars, but I think that this is better work overall. Less screen time, let's just say, but better work. And he was terrific. And then I thought that Ana de Armas was solid. The character's kind of a gimmick, but I thought that she was solid. You had Robin Wright kind of doing the icy stare thing as Ryan Gosling's boss.
So basically doing Claire Underwood in futuristic mode?
Yeah. And yeah, it's that was a lot of fun to see her, and of course I can never see her as anything but Princess Buttercup from Princess. Nevertheless, I thought that she was good. You had Sylvia Hooks, who was an assassin named Love, and that is spelled L-U-V, by the way. I thought that was a neat little thing. I saw that in the cast listing. She does the Terminator kind of thing where she's almost completely emotionless and, dedicated entirely to the mission, very physically capable. It was a solid turn from her. And the best performance for me was Jared Leto, who I thought first of all, he underplayed it, and that was really nice because, last year saw him do the opposite of that in Suicide Squad, and I thought that this was a nice turnaround for him to play a character with some genuine menace, but also basically just be a businessman. I mean, he's kind of an evil businessman, but he's not some, ginormous villain, and so Leto decided not to play him that way. He underplays it rather nicely. He's able to be menacing with just regular whispered speech rather than anything else. He looks creepy with the eyes and the thing on his neck where he plugs in. I don't know what they are. I guess cameras or something that fly around him, and it's a really good performance, especially a certain scene near the end with him in it, and I just really like that performance a lot. I know that that's going to cause some controversy because I think the thing right now is to not like Jared Leto, but in anything, even if he gives a good performance. But I think that he gives a good one here, quite good. It's really not a movie where the performances matter a whole lot, though. I find they're able to sell their roles nicely, but it's really just the performances function kind of, and some of them function slightly better than others with some good dialogue delivery or physical body language or what have you, but they were quite good. So yeah, that's pretty much my positives.
I was just going to kind of bounce off what you said about the performances and the way it was handled and delivered. I think the key word that you brought up is very important, is subtlety. Besides the outbursts, which contradict what I just said, everything else, whether it had to be, like you said, with like Harrison's sadness or Jared's menace or Ryan's kind of determination to figure out what the hell was going on, like, there was a lot of subtlety to everyone's acting, and it was kind of impressive because it resonated on a bigger scale rather than someone overacting and whatnot, and so I thought that was kind of well played out. A couple other things I forgot to mention in the positives is Ryan Gosling's arc. I do like his arc of his character, especially like towards the, whether it was, we'll get into the negatives, but I do like his overall purpose of his arc. I thought that was, effective. And then Denis Villeneuve's direction, not story based, but just handling conversations and dialogue bouncing back between actors.
And the action.
Yeah, and the action. Those are really well done. So I'm not knocking his work as a director. I'm going to more tear the story apart and how people are over-exaggerating this movie. But with his meticulous direction and the world building and the conversation building between characters is immaculate. And I take nothing away from the guy for doing that. But bleeding into the negatives, I'm going to go ahead and just say it. It's the same thing I have with the first one. The story itself is not compelling. It's just a very half-baked neo-noir detective story for 2 hours. The last 30 to 40 minutes, which I agree is probably my favorite part about the movie, because it has a lot of revelations in terms of characters' emotions, and like what Joel said, a climax that was worthy. But the main issue with this film is like the first 2 hours are drawn out to hell. The editing in this film runs at a snail's pace. Yes, is it kind of like transfixing to watch these characters in this environment and just the beautiful shots and whatnot? Sure. But it's a very drawn-out movie to where it could have been cut down. And I think the story overall with the detective portion is whatever. It's like it's fine. It's serviceable. It's not anything that's groundbreaking. And Joel mentioned a sex scene that was kind of felt like it was oddly placed. Sure was. It just like was interjected into the movie, and yes, it was a beautiful moment for what they were trying to do, but it just didn't really seem to fit over amongst everything. So there's that. And then the last 30 minutes, I actually, while I like, it also doesn't really fit the movie because it had the same issue I had with the first one, where the first one was just this detective story. Decker was trying to find these replicants and retire them, whatnot. I get that. It's a straightforward story. But then, just like with the Roy scene at the rooftop in the first one, then the last 30 minutes of this one is the exact same thing, where it's like it has all these themes and questions about humanity and how terrible humans are and just what we can do emotionally to AI. And it's just, while I liked it and while it was well delivered, I felt like once again it just was misplaced. And you're making this detective story and then turning it into something more profound, but you're shoving everything at the last 30 minutes, and you're just like, all right, we have to make sure everything is poignant from this point on. And it just doesn't seem to fit with me, even though I like it. So those are kind of my main issues with the movie, are just complete story base, because there's in the last 30 minutes, there is a section where Ryan Gosling's character kind of comes across other people, and which is fine, but then the next scene they're just gone, and that was it. And that seemed like a pivotal story point to me, to where that should have been kind of played throughout the movie, rather than the last act of the film. It just seemed very rushed and kind of just haphazardly put there. So I know I'm going to be the minority in this. That's fine. Joel's about to tear me apart. I'm probably going to get torn apart online. You stupid shit, fat fuck. I've heard it all, so if you want to put it down below, that's fine. I just don't think this is the masterpiece like everyone is claiming it to be, because I think the story in both movies, in particular, they're not fully fleshed out, profound ideas, but they're nestled in just an average detective story. So I don't understand the hype. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just fucking weird like that. But those are my negatives, Joel. I mean, please tell me I'm wrong, because I need to understand the greatness that people are seeing.
I will say that I've been more mixed on it. I think that as the days have gone by, and I might even be more so. I'm sticking with my grade for now, but I might even be more so mixed later on. I don't know. I do agree with your hangups about the plot. It's a very predictable detective story that's very familiar. I thought that the pieces of it were weird enough that it was an interesting one, but it is certainly a predictable one. There are a lot of secrets and twists here that I kind of saw coming. when they set up when they set them up, essentially. But I just think it's the payoff is sort of what makes it here. So to get into my negatives is hard because I'd have to talk about specific things. But I'll just say that I basically agree with Chase. I'm just a little higher on the movie than he is. I think that the story kind of has a middle section that's a bit languorous. It's a 2 hour and 45-minute movie. It didn't really need to be. It's about 45 minutes longer than the original, which was 2 hours, and
that felt like 5 years.
Well, no. That one, honestly, like, it's weird because except for the middle, I didn't even realize that the last 45 minutes or so was 45 minutes. It really zoomed by to the end.
But that middle portion, just the best way to describe it for Joel is like if Joel and I were in a scene and I was going to Joel for information, and the whole gist of the scene was for me to ask Joel, what did you find on the specimens that I gave you? The movie takes it to like this. Ryan Gosling will go into a room, they'll have this like weirdo like off discussion, and then they'll get to their point and then move on to the next scene, but it's like 30 minutes, and it's like that doesn't need to happen like that.
Yeah, and I agree. I just think that I think that wrapping these themes up in a more familiar story like this has been done countless times. And that's kind of the point of neo-noir a lot, especially when it comes to this, which is about AI, which kind of has inherent themes that are latched onto it about the nature of that, and I think that that's interesting enough to carry it through. But certainly, how the plot plays out is a bit predictable, a bit familiar. I was never bored with it though. I didn't find it boring.
I'll give you that. I actually do think the actual pace of the film was intriguing because of the settings, not necessarily the story.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was sort of my the key for me to how well this worked, ultimately. And I think it really is ultimately, because by the end, it's an impossible to deny movie, I think. And so yeah, I liked it, but I do have a lot of hang-ups with the way the entire thing is premised on a puzzle box mystery. I'm getting a little tired of that, honestly, in big budget movies like this, where, the last time this worked really well was Prometheus, I thought. Or maybe, yeah, I think Prometheus, where the entire thing is just kind of a puzzle box. There's, it's all kind of premised on this idea that if you reveal it, it's a spoiler, and they plot all of this stuff out to be a bunch of spoilers back to back. And it just is getting a bit tiresome, honestly. It's impossible to talk about this movie without freaking a lot of people out because they don't want to know anything, even, like I said, stuff in the first 5 minutes that's important to talk about when it comes to the points of the plot. It's kind of unavoidable to talk about the fact that the first 5 minutes reveal the K character to be a replicant because of how it plays out later on, and even talking about the middle portions, you lose something without mentioning that. Yet, it's kind of been barred from being talked about because Warner Brothers has set very clear guidelines. It's really tough, and Warner Brothers made it more difficult. I blame them on this, not myself for revealing it, because I'm not going to be. Well, first of all, I'm not going to be scared by the spoiler phobic. If you don't want to know, what's in a movie, don't listen to any podcast, don't read any website that talks about movie buzz, don't do any of it. Just go watch the movies cold, which is probably a great way to watch them. But nevertheless, if I feel like, crafting the narrative of the movie before they see it, it comes across as a little petty to me. But nevertheless, it's a good movie that's accomplished. I think it's a well-oiled machine. I don't think it's as passionate as the original. I don't think that it has as much to say. I think that the original had a lot of ideas and a really fascinating execution of them in ways that that Chase didn't find, and he's not alone. I feel like Siskel was pretty mixed on the movie. Certainly Ebert was when it first came out. The final cut's a little more popular, but people have the same issues with how it plays out as a deliberate kind of a deliberate pace. I love it, and this movie certainly reflects that decision. It plays out similarly, but it doesn't do it in nearly as an accomplished fashion on a storytelling level. So I'll hand it over to Chase for his final thoughts and grade, and then I'll give mine.
Yeah, listen. And this is gonna be very weird for me because honestly, I don't really care to see this movie ever again. But I'm gonna give it a slightly higher grade than what I thought I was going to give it, only because filmmaking is hard, and I am fully aware of that. It is one of the most difficult jobs to do in the art industry. On a technical level, this is something to behold. I enjoyed all the practicality. I enjoyed all the CGI. I enjoyed the cinematography, the lighting, the score, the overall setting and mood to establish this movie is fucking impressive. However, Joel has nailed this many times on the podcast, and I'll say it again. This is a storytelling medium. And when your story is running at a mediocre level with, yes, while the last 30, 40 minutes are spectacular in action and emotional development and characters, it still feels out of place and it feels like it's trying to be smarter than it actually is. I'm going to give it the same grade as I gave Valerian. And I know people are going to be pissed when I say that. But on a visual and technical level, it's impressive to where I can't go into the seas. I just can't. But I will dip it down severely for the story elements and just drawing the hell out of this movie to almost damn near 3 hours when it shouldn't have been. I can't do C, so I'm going to give it a very heavy B-, which is fine with me. I'm cool with that grade. I might like it 50 years from now. I have no clue. But after seeing the first one for the first time 4 days ago, and feeling basically the same thing as I did with the sequel, I mean, it's not the worst thing I've seen. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to get belligerent online. That's fine. But I'm telling you that I don't understand the masterpiece hype that people are stamping this thing with. So a B- for me. I'm cool with that. Not going to make it in my top 10 like everyone else is claiming. But cool. That's your thing if you want to put it there. So Blade Runner 2049, B- for me. Joel, what are you going to end up on?
I'm ending up with basically my final thoughts are that this does have a lot of it does kind of crap the bed with some of its puzzle box mystery narrative. I don't think it's quite as interesting as Villeneuve thinks it is, or as I should say, as unpredictable as he thinks it is. I think it is very interesting, but I'm going to go with a B. It's just a very solid movie. It's not as good as I wanted it to be, for sure, especially now that I've been given time to think. It's interesting because I gave this 3 stars, and it's interesting to give movies that we review on the show a couple of days to settle, because sometimes my ratings change. I feel like this might change with some time.
Probably.
Probably will go a little bit lower, because I was honestly, when I came out, I was like an A, and then I started thinking just about how the plot plays out, about how I guessed some of most of these developments, and that is a problem with the storytelling, as you said. It is a storytelling medium, and it is an example of it. Ebert once said it's not about what it's about how it's about it. And here, it sort of plays into both. What it's about is rather predictable, but how it's about it is what elevates that plot. And so I'm going to say that I'm going to give it a solid B.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I thought we were going to be a little bit more apart in our grades. But I mean, I think my main issue with going into movies like this is when people will cloud it with the masterpiece word and whatnot. Like I said, I don't personally see it, but then again, I'm the same type of person that walks out of Moonlight and was like, that was a masterpiece of film. Like, so I get it. So it might hit people differently. I'm just saying that the first one and this one, I like sci-fi as much as the next guy, but these films just don't really do it for me. And I'm one of those ones that's fascinated with AI. We just talked about replicas, so maybe like Joel said, this is one of those movies that's going to be treated like wine. We'll let it marinate for a little while, and maybe it'll have a stronger effect, but who knows? But what I don't care about what Joel and I have to say, because we're a bunch of idiots online, but what do you guys have to say? What did you guys think of Blade Runner 2049? Please comment down below and let us know. Now, let's get into Joel's mini reviews. Now, Joel, I am one to assume that your two movies consist of one contains Oscar winner and other contains Willy Wonka vomit. So this is an interesting duo that you're going to give us today. So which one would you like to talk about first, and reveal the title and let people know what your surprise mini reviews are?
Yeah, so the first one is going to be Battle of the Sexes. This is the new film from directors, Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris. They of Little Miss Sunshine and Ruby Sparks. This one tells the story of the tennis match between Bobby Riggs, played by Steve Carell, and Billie Jean King, played by Emma Stone, in the early 1970s. Basically, this one is frustrating because one half of the story is pretty interesting and the other half is broadly cartoonishized. That's a new word I decided to create. So the interesting half, and it's only partly interesting, honestly, is it actually almost makes the movie work. It's the personal story of Billie Jean King, who, at the same time as, facing off against a self-proclaimed chauvinist pig, was also struggling with her sexuality. We get to see that in, surprising candidness here. Where she has kind of fallen for a hairdresser who is able to kind of basically the hairdresser is she just finds herself attracted to her. She's in this marriage that's essentially a pantomime, and she becomes attached to this hairdresser played by Andrea Riseborough, and at the same time she's world number one in tennis. She's the first woman to accomplish that. We get to see that she's congratulated on that by Richard Nixon. But at the same time, there are a bunch of men commentating on the sport who don't think that it's so great because she is a woman and women are seen as lesser talent on the court. The problem is that her personal life is way more interesting and developed than her public life, because with the public stuff, the stuff on the court and dealing with sexism in the competitive sports scene of the 1970s, it's not even really explored. It just keeps making the point that the scene was really sexist. And that's basically it. Like, that's all that it really says. And it says that over and over and over again. And so we get a bit of insight into her personal life, but we don't really get an insight into how this affects her, this vision of her affects her life so much as just kind of a general sort of outrage. The Steve Carell side of the story is a complete wash. His performance isn't very good. He's basically playing a Michael Scott character here. It's the broad cartoon of the man who, this is an obvious Trump versus Hillary allegory. The left-leaning woman versus the chauvinist pig. It's a very obvious thing, but the movie doesn't really do anything with it. And Steve Carell isn't able to help. He just plays the broad caricature. And Some good things, though. It's really well shot. It's from Linus Sandgren, who shot La La Land last year, and he's able to, particularly in the matches, take this very interesting method of shooting the matches as if it's on a TV, like from the back, like from the overhead kind of view. And it works because it makes the matches really intense, a lot more intense than you might think. And so those are really well shot. It's obviously, Emma Stone is great in this role. She's, a possible contender for Best Actress. I don't know how seriously that's going to be a thing by the time January comes, but nevertheless, certainly a contender. It's just a really frustrating kind of experiment with telling two stories, or three stories really, doing one of them a really good service, kind of shortchanging the second one, and then the Steve Carell part is just completely, with increasing annoyance, kind of let down. He's just such a cartoon. It's just really like you just don't get to know the guy. You don't care about him. He's got a marriage that's on the rocks that, by the time we see the reason, we kind of understand the wife's point of view. There's no reason to sympathize with the guy, and it's just really frustrating. So I'm giving Battle of the Sexes as sadly a C+. It nearly gets there with with Emma Stone's performance and the cinematography and the way that her story as a person plays out, but it just doesn't. It's not enough, unfortunately. So I'm giving that one a C+. The next one is the movie event of a generation. It's My Little Pony the movie, and yeah, this exists on the screen. It's playing. Whatever. Here's the thing. I tried to watch the first episode of the 2010 revival not long ago, and I made it 10 minutes and shut it off. And so obviously 99 minutes of this was going to be difficult. It's not as difficult as I thought it would be. It's a little more dignified than the TV show, just a little bit though. It's basically just this really generic fantasy where and they're called the main six. There's Princess Twilight Sparkle, Rainbow Dash, Applejack, Rarity, and a couple of other ones. There's one with like a Reba McEntire impression. There's one that's really giggly and fun. Pinkie Pie is really annoying and giggly. Some of them are voiced by the same actresses. I think there are 4 actresses voicing 6 characters, and they are sort of threatened by this. Their village, I should say, is threatened by this guy named the Storm King, voiced by Liev Schreiber, who wants to use the power of the horns of the princesses of Equestria, who are unicorns. They have magical powers, I guess, to power a staff that will give him power. That's literally it. And so he sends a lieutenant voiced by Emily Blunt to kind of prepare the way for some reason, even though it's completely redundant that he would do that. And so the ponies kind of go on this journey of and then Twilight Sparkle, who's the main one, she's kidnapped, and anyway, they decide to go on this journey. I am actually like describing the plot of My Little Pony the movie, and it's completely unimportant. This is not a movie about plot. It's a movie about generic adventures and lessons and bright animation and all of that, and it's vaguely passable, but it's not even remotely entertaining in any way. And it's also like this half-hearted musical where none of the songs are memorable, and the animation is kind of rudimentary. It's 2D, but there's some 3D elements that are impressive in the background, and that's about it. The voice work is yeah, so that's that's basically it. I'm giving My Little Pony the movie a C-, and the reason that I don't go lower is because there's nothing really offensive about it. I mean, I guess one could, argue that its existence is offensive, but it has to be something specific with the movie. There's no potty humor. There's no, random physical pratfall violence. There's nothing particularly to hate here. It literally just sits on the screen, and I was just bored with it. So I'm giving that one a C minus, and I'm giving Battle of the Sexes a C plus, which feels weird because there's one grade that separates those, but nevertheless, that's where I am right now with those. I know that Chase has already seen My Little Pony 6 times, and plans to see it again right after we record. So
Joel, I can barely watch the movies that we schedule to watch. There's absolutely no way I watched something 6 times. So don't fucking lie to the people. No, the way Joel was describing My Little Pony was exactly how he talked to me when I told him I was a film critic. So when he's like, My Little Pony, it exists, it's there. I think I met Joel for the first time. I was like, hi, Joel, I'm a film critic, just like you. He's like, are you sure about that? Do you really write well? I don't think so. Like, he was very unsure about everything that was, happening. So that's exactly what that was. So, yeah, those are Joel's mini reviews. He will have a couple of them next week. I will have a couple of them next week. We're going to slam you guys with 5 reviews next week. Get ready for that shit. But until then, we got in this episode by going into the box office results. And, Joel created the notes this week, so it's my turn to guess. Rest in peace. Create my tombstone because I'm about to die of embarrassment.
Yeah. So the guess, or the hints that you get. So there was, of course, the limited release of the Florida Project. You could probably rule that one out, but that one opened in 4 theaters. There was also The Stray, which is a faith-based dog movie that I hadn't heard of until today. And then, of course, the main 3: Blade Runner, Mountain Between Us, and My Little Pony. So give it your best shot, sir.
Oh my god. All right, so just like with the original, I'm assuming Blade Runner flopped, so I don't even think it's top 2, ironically enough. Okay,
I will also give you another hint. This was one of the worst box office weeks in a while.
Oh, so shit. That means Blade Runner is number 1. It only topped like 15 million. Fuck. Okay, so here's what I'm going to settle on. Oh, shit. I think maybe The Mountain Between Us got number 5. American Made 4. Kingsman 3. No. Scratch that. American Made 5, Kingsman 4, It 3, My Little Pony 2, and Blade Runner 1.
So run through those again. I'm just trying to get the okay.
Basically, Joel's lengthening this out so he can call me a dumb shit. Hold on. So I'm gonna go. I'll do Kingsman 5, American Made 4, It 3, My Little Pony 2, and Blade Runner 1. But Blade Runner barely beat out My Little Pony.
Well, no. So it is wrong. It's. So we were talking before we recorded, and Chase was like, "You're just gonna give me an F minus. I would maybe give you a D plus."
Oh God, that's not as good.
That's better. Okay, so I guess before I get to the 5, I'll just say that the Florida Project opened in 4 theaters and it made $153,342.
Oh shit, that's actually not bad.
Yeah, not at all. It's $38,000 per theater, so that's pretty impressive.
And Joel and I are seeing that in a week and a half, so we will let you guys know 2 weeks from now
what it is. And then The Stray, I'm gonna have to watch the trailer for this because it has one of the funniest or most unintentionally funny posters. It looks like the corniest thing in the world, and it completely bombed by any measure of the word. It made $550,000, and it opened in 640 theaters.
Wow.
Yeah, $859 a theater. So yeah, it opened at number 13. Sorry. So here's the top 5. At number 5, Kingsman: The Golden Circle with 8.1. It's got a total right now domestically of 80 million. I always like to do the rounding thing. It's 80 million, but worldwide it's at 253.6. So I know that you're super happy about that, you evil person. But it's actually doing pretty well worldwide. It's probably going to justify that third one coming out, but domestically, not so good with a $104 million budget. All right, number 4 is My Little Pony the movie.
Wow.
With 8.8 million. The budget is unlisted, but I'm going to guess that it probably cost less than stuff like The Nut Job 2. I'm going to say maybe 15 or 20.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, I mean it's a 2D animated movie. There's not a lot of names in it, so I'm going to guess that it wasn't very much, and most of that probably went to Emily Blunt and Liev Schreiber. So, and maybe to some of the 3D, artists. But yeah, it still didn't do well though, because not even an animated movie not even able to make back its budget in the first week is not great. Or at least have a path to make its budget back very quickly. Number 3 is It, with 9.7 million. It is at 304.9 domestically and 603.8 worldwide. So just a little bit of money.
A little bit.
A little bit. Number 2 is The Mountain Between Us with 10.1. The problem is that this movie has a $35 million budget, so
Woof.
Fox is not doing well, and worldwide it only made 13.7. So that's a gigantic flop, honestly. That's rather dire. And yes, number 1 is Blade Runner 2049, but it actually did. I mean, it did better. It's still a terrible week, but it did better than you might expect. It made 31.5 million. The problem is it's a $150 million budget. So, or 185, I think, overall. So, yeah, it's worldwide it's at 81.7. So this thing's not getting off to a great start. So that is the news regarding the placement, and then we have a couple of interesting things. I always like seeing major rises and drops. There weren't really any major drops this week, but the major rises are really weird. So The Hero, which was a movie that came out back in June and has Sam Elliott, had one theater that it was playing in. It added one theater to its order, I guess. And it rose 1,000% in the process. It rose from placement 125 to 47. So it actually made this list, and it made $1,000 this week, basically $1,300 for a total of $4 million. So that was really interesting to see. Let's see. I said no major rises, drops. Although I will say that 47 Meters Down lost 21 theaters and dropped 84%, and it only made $2,000.
Hey, but on a budget of $5 million, it's almost at $45 million, and that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But it is a major drop. And then the other big rise was Victoria and Abdul, which added 655 theaters and rose 279% in the process. It made $4.1 million this week for a total of $5 million. It probably didn't take very much to make that movie, and they're probably not worried about it anyway, but it rose from number 11 to number 8. So it's in the top 10 now. So that's good for Focus. They've got a movie in the top 10. And speaking of Battle of the Sexes, it only dropped 29%, but it dropped from number 6 to number 10. It made $2.4 million, and it's now at $7.8 million, or $7.7 million. So that's the box office news for the top 5 and all the little side stuff that I like to do.
Yeah, so pretty weird week, to say the least. Not really anything spectacular, but starting November, the first week in November, we're going to be hitting it big with, of course, Thor. Justice League comes out 2 weeks after that, and then Star Wars and all the other big ones next month. So once November hits, we'll get back to more of the bigger numbers because, let's face it, ever since it came out, nothing's really been able to kind of come anywhere close to that monstrosity. So, monstrosity in a good way. But yeah, so that is it for the episode, guys. 202 in the bag. And speaking of the next episode, 203, because we're going to keep it going until I at least die off. 203, this is going to be great because we got 5 reviews for you guys. But we're not going to tell you about 4 of them. We're going to tell you about the main one we're going to do, and we're going to keep the mini reviews as surprises. So get ready for that. But Joel, what is the main film that we're going to talk about together next week?
The main film that we're talking about, we're going to be seeing together.
I know. We're going to be holding hands. It's going to be a magical date indeed with Chase and Joel.
Very romantic. It's going to be The Foreigner, which is the new Jackie Chan, Pierce Brosnan movie. And looking forward to that. Looks stylish and fun.
Yeah,
sure.
Basically it'll be Jackie Chan's Taken, and that's what I expect it to be. And then, of course, like I said,
fighting James Bond, and from the director of one of the James Bond movies. So it's pretty neat. Martin Campbell did GoldenEye, so and of course Casino Royale, but GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan. So it's neat because you get the legend Jackie Chan fighting James Bond. It's it's going to be fun. For sure.
Yeah. So next week should be quite fun indeed, and all 5 movies I will have seen, but Joel will take over 2 of them, and then I'll take over the other 2. So what will they be? Just know that it is an eclectic bunch. I will just say that because I will have seen all 5 of these movies, and it's one of the weirdest groups I've ever had to attend in basically a week period. So next week should be a lot of fun. That's episode 203, guys, so let's wrap up this one so we can get to that one. Joel, where can the people find you online?
First of all, I'm going to ask, can you hear me?
No, you cut out about 2 hours ago.
Okay.
That would suck, right? I'd be like I haven't heard Joel in the past 2.5 hours. Like, what is he talking about?
Okay, it's just the connection started to be a little choppy in the last few seconds, so I was just making sure. But you can find my writing at joelonfilm.com. I've got reviews of all 3 of these movies. You can also find my writing at dallasmoviescreenings.com. And on that note, I actually reviewed 2 documentaries for this DocFest that's playing in our area. I got reviews of those, Escapes and Extraordinary Ordinary People. I loved good docs. These were not very good, but you can find my reviews of those there, and you can follow me at Twitter at RealJoelCopling, and on Letterboxd at jcopling. You can search me there. Also, join that website because it's awesome. So that's my internet footprint.
Yeah, and bleeding off into my Twitter is at RealChaseLee, and then subscribe to my YouTube channel, and of course, support this podcast, spread it around, like it, subscribe, share, and that helps it grow and whatnot, and hopefully we'll be able to do more stuff for you guys in the future. So, but that we all thank you guys for listening every single week, and of course boosting it to the group it is now, because I never would have thought in a million years that this podcast would be consistent every week with the amount of listeners we have. So you guys are pretty badass, and all the links in the description will be below, so you can check that stuff out, just in case if you didn't remember any of that, or you just hate my voice and you want to read stuff down below. And of course the intro and outro music is done by my friend's band Fervent Roze. Check them out, link in the description also to catch their new stuff and what not. So I'm Chase Lee, that is Joel over there, and we will see you guys next week for 203, where we talk about The Foreigner and surprise, 4 other movies. Peace out, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.